Fire Emblem is a fantasy tactical role-playing video game franchise developed by Nintendo's Intelligent Systems division and published by Nintendo as a first-party title, first appearing on the Famicom. The Fire Emblem series is well known for its innovation and for being one of the first Eastern-style tactical role-playing games, with a strong emphasis on Western forms of medieval fantasy. The series is also renowned for having deeply developed characters, as well as the fact that most units death a Euro, or defeat in battle a Euro is permanent in the game until the end of the playthrough. The series currently spans 13 games, and has been released on the Family Computer, Super Famicom, Game Boy Advance, GameCube, Nintendo DS, Wii and Nintendo 3DS. All games in the series were exclusive to Japan until 2003, when the seventh game in the series was released internationally under the title Fire Emblem, largely due to the popularity of Fire Emblem characters Marth and Roy in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Fire Emblem was designed specifically with newcomers to the series in mind, and the first 10 chapters were structured in a manner that eased newcomers into the gameplay. All Fire Emblem games produced since have also been released internationally, except for Fire Emblem, Shin Monshō no Nazo, Hikari to Kage no Eiyū on the Nintendo DS. Development: Fire Emblem, Onkoku Ryata Hikari no Tsurugi was developed by Shozo Kage, the maker of Advance Wars, who would go on to work on every other Fire Emblem title until Faiā 776. Controversy began in 2001 when Kage left Nintendo to found Terninog, an independent studio. One of his first games was Tearing Saga for the PlayStation, a game that borrowed heavily from the Fire Emblem series in terms of graphics and gameplay. The game was initially similar to Fire Emblem in title, with the development name being Emblem Saga. Nintendo filed a lawsuit against Terninog and the game's distributor Enterbrain seeking $1 million in the belief that the game infringed upon Nintendo's copyright. Nintendo lost, and Terninog later produced a sequel called Tearing Saga, Beric Saga. Gameplay. The Fire Emblem series of turn-based tactics games centers on moving units through a map grid in order to defeat the opposition. Players use strategic movements and positioning to complete mission objectives such as seizing a base, surviving for a number of turns, or defeating a boss. Many conventions of traditional role-playing video games are also present. For example, there is extensive use of scripted cutscenes to advance the story, units gain experience points and grow stronger over the course of the campaign, and the player can visit shops to outfit characters with weapons and equipment. Depending on the game, these events may take place during or in between battles. Additionally, combat is decided based on the stats of units in combat. HP is the total amount of hit points that a character has. When hit points reach 0, the character dies. Damage to the HP is done depending on the weapon used, strength stat of the attacker and the defense stat of the defender. It is important to note that the strength and defense stat are separate from their magic counterparts, being called magic and resistance respectively. Speed modifies the number of times a combatant can attack each turn. If one combatant's speed is a certain level higher than the opponent, they may double attack an opponent, meaning that they can attack the opponent twice while only receiving one counterattack. The skill stat, along with speed, affects the accuracy of each attack. Higher attacker skill equals increased accuracy. Higher defender speed decreases accuracy of opponent attack. Lastly, the luck stat affects a variety of gameplay mechanics such as lucky hits doing increased damage known as critical hits. Most weapons in the Fire Emblem series have a finite number of uses and will eventually break. Therefore, the player must often buy replacement weapons or spend gold to have broken weapons repaired. Typically, weaker weapons allow more uses than more powerful ones, and are often more accurate. Using units in battle will allow them to gain experience points. A character's level will increase upon gaining 100 experience points. Leveling up party members can be a challenge, as many newly recruited units arrive with inferior levels and statistics, but because the amount of experience earned from defeating an enemy is determined by the level discrepancy between the battling units, Characters at lower levels earn more experience than higher-leveled characters when defeating enemies of comparable level. In addition to statistics, units have a weapon level for each type of weapon they can use. E denotes the lowest possible skill, followed by D, C, B, A, and S. In Radiant Dawn it is possible to achieve an SS weapon level, which is one level higher than S. However, units who wield more than one weapon may still only have up to one weapon level at SS. Units can only use weapons whose level is equal to or lower than their own, but weapon levels can be increased by repeatedly using weapons of that type. As characters level up, they may gain the ability to change to a more powerful character class, often referred to as promotion. Depending on the mechanics of the particular game, characters may promote upon reaching a certain level, through the use of special items that instantly cause promotion, or by visiting a certain location. Major characters may automatically promote during story events. Characters that promote receive a one-time statistics upgrade that is higher than the average leveling upgrade and additional abilities that are standards of the higher-tier classes. Fire Emblem utilizes a distinct cast of characters, each belonging to one of many character classes and having a personality and past of his or her own. Typically, the size of the player's character roster is very small at the beginning of each game, but as progress is made, other units may join the player's party through story events or through actions taken. The later games in the series typically contain playable rosters between 30 and 70 characters deep. Weapon Triangle. The combat system is in part based on a rock-paper-scissors method of fighting, as each weapon type has both an advantage and a disadvantage against other types. Starting in the fourth game, Fire Emblem, Genealogy of the Holy War, the weapon triangle has been lance beats sword, sword beats axe, and axe beats lance. Bows are unaffected by the triangle, can attack from a distance, and do higher amounts of damage against flying units like Pegasi, but this is offset by the bow wielder's inability to counterattack melee strikes. A similar magic triangle exists in some games. In the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games, light beats dark, dark beats anima, and anima beats light. In other games, fire beats wind, wind beats thunder, and thunder beats fire. Magic and certain melee weapons can be used either from a distance or in melee range. Support level. Friendship and romance are prevalent themes throughout the Fire Emblem series. Starting from the third game, Monshō no Nazo, characters could stand adjacent to others to receive a small boost to their stats. This characteristic has been further emphasized in the gameplay itself through the use of support conversations, where characters will have an exchange that grants a bigger bonus. In the GBA Fire Emblem titles, these conversations can be triggered by having specific pairs of characters end their turns standing next to each other. After a specific number of turns have accumulated, the player is given the option to view a support conversation between the two characters. This process can occur up to 3 times. Path of Radiance altered the approach by requiring characters to be in a certain number of battles together and not necessarily adjacent to one another. Radiant Dawn changed the system further, allowing multiple means of accumulating support between characters. In addition, supports can occur between any 2 playable characters, but can also be removed. Awakening for the 3DS changed this system even further, linking the support relationship system to a pseudo-dating simulation. In this game, 2 characters need to be paired up for dual strikes guards a set number of times before a support conversation can be viewed, which is done outside of battle. Characters who support each other receive statistical bonuses, based on support level and each character's elemental affinity, that activate any time they are within 3 spaces of each other on the battlefield. If 2 characters with a mutual romantic attraction, strong friendship, or other form of mutual connection engage in 3 support conversations throughout the game, the result will sometimes affect the game's ending. There are limits on how many support conversations one character can have in a single playthrough. The GBA games and Path of Radiance only allow 5 support conversations per person, while Radiant Dawn only supports 1 support relationship for every character. Awakening adds a new support level of S, which is attained by having 4 support conversations between one pair of male and female characters rather than 3. However, each character can only have one support relationship with another. Other than this, and the fact that some units do not get along as well, the number of support conversations one character can have with other units in the player's army is unlimited. Death. One of Fire Emblem's signature elements is the concept of permanent death. Fire Emblem characters that run out of hit points and die cannot be brought back to life in the game. This also affects recruitable NPC and enemy units. If a player wishes to continue using a character or to recruit a would-be playable unit that has been killed, then the player must restart that chapter from the beginning. In addition, a game over occurs whenever one of the main characters falls, or in other situations depending on a mission's requirements. Only under special circumstances, such as being significantly related to the story, will characters who have fallen in battle not actually die, though the player will still be unable to use them in further battles. In extremely rare situations, characters that fall in battle can become playable at a later point in the game. For example, in Fire Emblem, Rekken no Ken, the game is split into 2 parts, Lin's Tale and Eiyū's Tale. All characters from Lin's Tale are recruited again in the second part of the game, as characters who are killed retreat from the battlefield due to extreme wounds, and recover by the second part ready to fight again. In Fire Emblem, The Sacred Stones, there is a compulsory side quest in the game, in which if the 2 cavaliers fall in battle, they will still return later on. Also in Fire Emblem, Radiant Dawn, some partner units and previously playable enemies will retreat from battle and later return as playable. In Fire Emblem, Gaiden, dead units can be resurrected a limited number of times via lion head statues. In Fire Emblem, Monshō no Nazo, towards the end of each book, an item called the Om Staff will become available which, via certain characters who can use it, can resurrect dead units. In a similar way, Fire Emblem, Saisen no Kaifu allows the player to revive perished characters with the Valkyrie Staff. Finally in Fire Emblem, Shin Monshō no Nazo, Hikari to Kage no Eiyū, players for the first time can have the option to turn off the permanent death feature under casual mode, or turn it on under classic mode, the former mode intended to appeal to beginners. This feature returned in Fire Emblem Awakening. Plot. The primary settings of the Fire Emblem series are commonly defined by the names of the continents on which the games are set. Aside from Arcania, Valencia, and Jutral, which are confirmed to be part of the same world, each continent is thought to exist in its own separate universe with its own incarnation of the Fire Emblem. Games set on the same continent are typically linked through the overarching storyline and character relationships. For example, Fire Emblem is a prequel to Binding Blade, and some of the characters in these games are blood-related. There are currently 6 continents: Arcania Onkoki Ryata Hikari no Tsurugi Euro Monshō no Nazo Euro Akanea Senki Euro Shadow Dragon Euro Awakening, Valencia, Gaiden Euro Awakening, Jugdral, Saisen no Kaifu Euro Thracia 776, Elib, Binding Blade Euro Fire Emblem, Magval, Sacred Stones, Teleus, Path of Radiance Euro Radiant Dawn. The eponymous Fire Emblem of the games is a plot device or item that has taken multiple forms throughout the series, changing with the setting. The original Fire Emblem was a shield. In the remake of the original game in Monshō no Nazo, the Fire Emblem can open chests, and in the second half of the game, it can be upgraded with 5 orbs to turn it into the Shield of Seals. In Saisen no Kaifu, it does not appear, but it is mentioned as the family crest of a noble house by the person succeeding it. In Binding Blade and Fire Emblem, the Fire Emblem is a gemstone required for a ceremony to recognize the heir to the Kingdom of Burn, and was used to seal away a dragon. In the Sacred Stones, the Fire Emblem is one of the eponymous stones, which holds the spirit of a demon. In Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, it is a medallion containing the imprisoned spirit of a dark goddess, who can only be freed by a song called the Galdr of Release. Awakening depicts the Fire Emblem as a shield once more. Media, Main Series. The following is a list of games released in the series. Games predating Fire Emblem were released only in Japan. As a result, there were no official English-language titles for these games until Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Nintendo Wii listed Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragons and the Blade of Light, Fire Emblem Gaiden and Fire Emblem, the Binding Blade in the game's sound test. Translated names for remaining games in the Fire Emblem series were revealed in the Spotpass character DLC for Fire Emblem, Awakening. Remakes, Other, Music. The musical scores for Fire Emblem have been composed by Yuka Tsujioko for most of the series' history. Most of the games in the series featured soundtracks composed entirely of instrumental music. However, BS Fire Emblem, Akanea Senki broke from this trend with the end credit theme Wind, a lyrical song sung in Japanese. Similarly, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance and Fire Emblem, Radiant Dawn have featured lyrical songs, Life Returns, and Dawn Awakens respectively, both sung in the fictional language of the games called the Ancient Language. Life Returns is the song that the fictional Heron Eiyū sing. It is sung as Galdr, which is the fictional language of the game sung. The song is sung during a cutscene, and also at the end during the credits. Dawn Awakens is also sung in the Ancient Language, but is not sung during the game, but only during the credits if certain criteria was met in-game. A lyrical version of the Fire Emblem main theme, previously used in older advertisements, is particularly well known. Sung by an unknown Japanese operatic troupe on stage with a stage set to look like the environments found in-game, and dressed as the game's cast, the lyrics describe the difficulty of the game to the audience. This same lyrical version is also in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Due to the worldwide release of the game, this version of the song is sung in Latin. There are also recurring tracks in the Fire Emblem series. The most frequently used is the Fire Emblem main theme, which is played at some point during each game. Its use is particularly varied, as it is sometimes used as the title screen theme, while in Path of Radiance, the song is not heard until the very end of the game, when each character's performance is ranked. Since Fire Emblem, Seisen no Kaifu, battle themes of previous Fire Emblem games have been remixed as arena battle themes. Similar rearranging appears in other circumstances, as well. For example, the musical score for the trial maps in Path of Radiance was originally the music score for Chapter 10 of Seisen no Kaifu. The game's music has been released on various soundtracks in Japan. The Nintendo DS game Daigasso Band Brothers features the Fire Emblem theme as a song. Anime, Fire Emblem, Mystery of the Emblem is a 2-episode Japanese original video animation directed by Shin Monshō and produced by KSS and Studio Fantasia. Released in 1996, it is based on Fire Emblem, Monshō no Nazo, the third game of the series, which in turn included a remake of Fire Emblem, Onkoku Ryata Hikari no Tsurugi, the first game in the series. The English-language adaptation of Fire Emblem is licensed by ADV Films, which was released in North America before any other Fire Emblem material. Manga. Several manga adaptations exist for various games in the series. These include a manga based on Onkoku Ryata Hikari no Ken, by Maki Hakeda, and 3 manga based on Seisen no Kaifu by Fujimori Natsu, Mizuki Oesawa and Nei Fuyuki. The last released manga was Fire Emblem, Hashia no Tsurugi, a retelling of the events of Binding Blade, but with alternate leads Al, Gant and Tiana. These 3 characters were referenced in Binding Blade. Card Game. The Fire Emblem trading card game was released by NTT Publishing Company, Limited in August 2001. 6 series were produced before its termination in 2006. The first 3 series depicted characters from Seisen no Kaifu, the 4th featured characters from Thracia 776, and the anthology expansion featured characters from both games, but with artwork from different artists. The final 2 expansions featured characters from Monshō no Nazo. The trading card game is similar to battles in Fire Emblem, but players battle with different types of cards, such as character, terrain, weapon and surprise cards. NTT Publishing also published Fire Emblem soundtracks and books. Super Smash Bros. Since its inception in 1990, the Fire Emblem series had largely been confined to Japan. In 2001, however, Nintendo released Super Smash Bros. Melee, a fighting game containing characters from throughout the company's video gaming history. The original Japanese release of this game contained 2 characters from the Fire Emblem series, Marth, the protagonist of the first game, Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the third, Fire Emblem, Monshō no Nazo. And Roy, who stars in the then-unreleased 6th game, Fire Emblem, The Binding Blade. According to Nintendo's official Japanese website, Marth was put in Super Smash Bros. Melee upon the request of Japanese gamers. If Marth is unlocked, players can change the music of the temple stage to a remixed version of the Fire Emblem main theme, and Shadow Dragon's encounter theme. Marth's design and playability earned him extra attention while the game underwent debug testing in North America, and it was by the decision of Nintendo of America that he was included in the North American version. Roy had been included in Japan to promote the upcoming release of Binding Blade, and was likewise included in the North American version. It was due in part to Marth and Roy's popularity from their appearance in Super Smash Bros. Melee that Nintendo decided to localize and market Fire Emblem games for North American and European release. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Marth returns as a playable character, along with Ike from Path of Radiance. Lyn, one of the lords from Fire Emblem, Reka no Ken, also makes an appearance as an assist trophy item summon, while other major characters appear as trophies, stickers or both. One of the game's stages, Castle Siege, is inspired by the Fire Emblem series. The Fire Emblem main theme has been arranged similarly to the Super Smash Bros. Brawl main theme, including orchestral arrangement and Latin lyrics, though the Fire Emblem music from Melee is used among other pieces of music. A trial version of Fire Emblem, Monshō no Nazo, has been included exclusively in the Japanese version of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Marth and Ike in his Radiant Dawn appearance are confirmed to reappear, while Lucina and Robin are newly introduced in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Lucina is a clone of Marth. The game's director, Masahiro Sakurai, originally intended Lucina to be an alternative costume for Marth, but decided to include her as a separate, fully-fledged character. Lyn has a cameo in the Wii U version of the game, as an assist trophy. 2 of the game's stages are based on Fire Emblem settings, Arena Ferox for the 3DS version and Colosseum, inspired by arenas that appear in some of the series installments, for the Wii U. Reception. The Fire Emblem games have scored well in the media. Euro Fire Emblem was awarded 9.5 by IGN in 2003. On game rankings, Fire Emblem averages 88%, The Sacred Stones averages 85%, Path of Radiance averages 86%, Radiant Dawn averages 78% and Awakening averages 93%, making it the highest-rated game in the series on that website. Critics have welcomed the character development and plotlines but have criticized the limited multiplayer options. A common criticism of the series' GameCube and Wii titles is that their 3D graphics are lacking compared to many other console titles. In 2006, Fire Emblem, Monshō no Nazo appeared in Famitsu's Top 100 Games list, where it is number 68. Radiant Dawn was the highest-selling Wii game of the week ending February 25, 2007, with 73,359 sales in Japan. See also: Wars, a modern military tactics series also developed by Nintendo's Intelligent Systems. Tearing Saga, a similar game developed by Shozo Kage after leaving Intelligent Systems, which was subject to a partially successful intellectual property lawsuit. Notes. References. External links: Official Fire Emblem website.